Alright, we're going to be doing a tutorial on polynomial division. Now, sounds very complicated, seems very complicated, but it is very simple. How do we divide this? Well, the way we divide this is by doing standard long division. So, x squared minus 6x plus 7 divided by x minus 1. So, what do we have to multiply this, or really what's important here is, what do we have to multiply, sorry, my undo key is not working. What do we have to multiply this by to get this, right? And the answer is just x. How do you get x squared? You multiply x by itself. So, you're going to x, and then minus x squared, and then you multiply this by the other term as well. So, negative 1 times x, that's negative x. Right? And this parenthesis is very important because we are subtracting this term from the top term. So, positive x squared minus positive x squared cancels out. Negative 6x minus negative x, very important that you don't lose those signs. Combine these, you get a positive x. So that's negative 6x plus x, because negative makes positive. So actually we end up with 5x, negative 5x, because we're adding a positive to a negative, and the negative is bigger. Right? So, sorry about that. Vacuum turned on. So negative makes positive, and then you add positive x to negative 6x. So you get negative 5x. Bring this down. Plus 7. How do we turn x into negative 5x? Negative 5. So, minus negative 5x. And then negative 5 times negative 1 gives us positive 1. I mean positive 5, sorry. So 5 times 1. Negatives cancel out. Do like that. So, if we combine these, we get plus 5x. Negative, positive, cancel. How about this? We turn this to negative 5. 7 minus 5. That just gives us 2. So this is just remainder 2. And then we have x minus 5 right here. So now that we have this, what do we do with it? Well, let's think about what we just did. We just divided x minus 1 from this equation, and our resulting number is x minus 5. X minus 5. This is our answer, if we didn't have a remainder. Now what do we do with our remainder? Well, we just tack it on the end, and since it's undivided still, since we still have more work to be done on it, but we can't divide, it's just left over, we put it under that same denominator, x minus 1 that we divided everything by. It's just the leftover. These have all been divided, but this guy is still trying to, but he can never get divided. So we have x minus 1, 2 over x minus 1. You just want to put your remainder as a numerator above this number that you just divided by, or the number that was on the denominator. And that's really all there is to it. Now, if you get more complicated, right, and we start adding a third element, your first instinct may be to start factoring, but you can't really factor this top one because it's so complex. Factoring by grouping doesn't work. And although you could try to factor this one, it won't give you an even solution. So what do? Well, same as before. Long division. X cubed minus 4x squared plus 3x minus 1. Easy peasy. We do the same thing as before. So, what do we multiply x squared by to get x cubed? X. Except instead of doing it at the second point here, we have 1, 2, 3. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to do it here, x. So we have minus x cubed, and then what's x times 2x? Sorry, negative 2x? That's negative 4x. What's x times negative 2x? That is negative 2x squared. What's x times 5? Plus 5x. So, negative crosses out. Negative adds. So, we get positive 2x squared with a negative, so we get an ending number of 2x squared. And then negative, we subtract, and then that gives us negative 2x. So far, so good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to say again, bring this down. We're going to say again, what do we multiply x squared by to get negative 2x squared? Well, just negative 2. So, negative 2x squared, multiply it. That gives us plus 4x, I believe. Yes, it does. And then we get minus 10. Now, we get positive 2x squared, which cancels out. We get negative 4x, so that's minus 6x. And then we get positive 10, which is equal to positive 9. And there's not much else we can do here. We have no more terms. So our remainder is negative 6x plus 9. So if we were to put this out, it would look something like x minus 2, and then minus 9. Actually, no. Plus negative 6x plus 9 over this right here, which is x squared minus 2x plus 5. Boom! That's done. Now, if you have an equation that looks something like this, so you have 2x squared minus x plus 4 over x plus 3, right? How do we do this faster? There has to be a better way, right? There is. But the condition is, it has to be dividing by a 0. It has to look like x plus or minus a number, right? Has to be in this form. Sorry. Always has to be in this form. If that is the case, then you can use this method. But in no other way can you use it. So, I want you to draw a box like this. And then up here, you are going to write a. And notice how this is minus a. That's because if you were to make x plus 3 equals 0, you get negative 3 equals x. So this plus 3 turns into negative 3. Put it up here. Now I want you to put all the coefficients of x. And what's really interesting about this technique is that it does not matter how long it is. The expression could be x to the 9, 2x to the 8. As long as you make sure to include every one in sequential order. So like if you have x to the 6 with nothing between, you have to put 0 between. Right? So what you do is you take the coefficients of each one in order. This is why the 0 is important. So if I had no x to the 1, I would have to put a 0 instead of that. But, so we have 2. We're just going to put a 2. We have negative x, that's negative 1. And we have 4, that's 4. Now what we do is we bring it down, 2 right there. And then we multiply it with Negative 3 times 2. Negative 6. We bring it down. Combine these two, we get negative 7. Negative 7 right here. And then we multiply. Negative 3 times negative 7, that's 21. We combine, we get 25. And then this is our remainder, 25. The last number is always the remainder. And ideally, if you had no remainder, it would be 0. But in this case, it's not. So what do we do with this? Well, that's our answer. And if you're wondering how I knew which one to put the x on, you just work backwards. So this one is x to the 0, this one is x to the 1, and then you would just work backwards depending on how many it is. And then you're done. 2x minus 7 plus 25 over x plus 3. Boom! Now let's give another practice problem, just to really hone it in. I'm actually going to use this guy up here. Steal him. I'm going to use him. So, just to prove this method works. So, minus 1 turns to plus 1. We're going to draw our box here. And we're going to put in our coefficients. So, coefficient of 1, coefficient of negative 6, coefficient of 7. And you see how fast it is. You bring it down, multiply, negative 5, multiply, negative 5, and then you combine the two, and then you get 2. X minus 5 plus 2 over x minus 1. And would you look at that? Different methods. One took substantially longer, but we got the same answer. X minus 5 plus 2 over x minus 1. Try this method, but always remember that it has to be dividing by x minus a. It has to be in 0 form, or else it does not work. So I'm going to give you the steps one more time. You're going to take your x minus a, and then on the top you have, let's say, dx squared plus ex plus f. Right? And this can go on forever. Does not matter. But for our purposes, it's going to go like that. So you put a right here, and then you put d, e, f. Bring d directly down. Bring the first one always directly down, and then you multiply. So a times d, a, d, and then you add the two. A. I'm not going to do a whole variable thing, but you just add these two, and then you get your new value. Let's say y. And then you multiply it. You bring it back up. So ay. And then you combine these. And then you have your remainder. I like to draw a line right here, just so I know where the remainder is. So your box should look something like this. And then you have, looks like a big 4. And then you have your a value, your whatever numbers, and then you just bring it down, multiply, and then you bring it back up, and then combine, down, multiply, up, combine, down, multiply, up, combine, down, and then the last one is just your remainder. Simple. If you want me to do a follow-up video on this tutorial, on this method, I will. But it's pretty self-explanatory. And that is all for polynomial division. Hope that helped.